Hey everyone, Glenn here from rewiringtinnitus.com. So today I'm excited to share another new episode of my Ask Me Anything About Tinnitus video series where I answer your most pressing questions about tinnitus. For anyone new to the channel, I'm Glenn Schweitzer and I'm the author of the book Rewiring Tinnitus and also the blog of the same name. I also write a tinnitus column at healthyhearing.com, and for the last 8 years, I've worked with over 1,000 tinnitus patients one-on-one from all over the world as a tinnitus coach, helping people to habituate as quickly as possible to find lasting relief from the ringing in their ears. In today's video, I'm going to answer an important question that I get asked very often by my tinnitus coaching clients, which is, can your diet and appetite affect your tinnitus? And by extension, are there foods that can make tinnitus worse or better? So first things first, the short answer to all of these questions is yes. Diet and appetite can certainly affect tinnitus, and in many cases there are foods that can make tinnitus worse or better for many patients. But that doesn't apply to all tinnitus sufferers, and exactly how much of a factor diet plays in any one person's tinnitus varies wildly on a case-by-case basis. There's also, unfortunately, no magic diet that just makes tinnitus better for everyone. And likewise, there are no specific foods that always make tinnitus worse that everyone should avoid. In my experience, every case of tinnitus is somewhat unique, and it can take a little bit of legwork to identify exactly which foods are beneficial and which cause your tinnitus to spike. But despite all the differences, if you look at enough people's individual experiences of tinnitus, patterns start to emerge that you can use to help you find relief from your own tinnitus. But before I get into any specific dietary triggers you might want to avoid, I want to first talk a little bit about appetite. When you live with bothersome tinnitus and you're deep in the vicious cycle of fight or flight and experiencing high levels of anxiety and emotional distress, your appetite can shut completely down and it can become very difficult to eat. Over the years, so many of the people I've worked with have told me that they had lost weight as a result of their tinnitus, oftentimes weight that they didn't have to lose because their anxiety and emotional distress had made it nearly impossible to eat. But what most people don't realize is that not eating will often make tinnitus worse. You know that feeling when you've had an early lunch and you're starting to feel hungry again, but you're not going out for dinner for another hour or two. And so you're also starting to feel kind of cranky and irritable and agitated. That hungry, angry, tired, or hangry feeling is happening all the time when a person's appetite is suppressed by tinnitus anxiety, and it's actively making the anxiety worse, but they won't notice it or even be able to feel this happening. Because they aren't feeling a lower level of baseline anxiety that is suddenly being exacerbated into a higher level of anxiety by the hunger, they're just feeling this higher level of anxiety, which only suppresses the appetite even further, making it even harder to eat. But in the dinner example, when you finally get to the restaurant, you sit down, you have a nice meal with your friends or family, and you start to relax and you feel better, and all that stress starts to go away. Eating and digesting all that food always calms a lot of that frustrated energy down. And so it's very important to make sure you're eating enough throughout the day. If your appetite is suppressed by anxiety, you may need to force yourself to eat smaller portions more often throughout the day, but it can make a big difference in how you feel. Tinnitus is an exhausting problem on every level. From an energy management perspective, you need to make sure you're getting enough calories, or you won't be able to cope as effectively as you would have been able to otherwise. You need gas in the gas tank, or the car will start to break down. It's really as simple as that. Now, even if your appetite isn't affected, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your tinnitus and you haven't eaten for a few hours, try eating a small snack. It can help to move the needle a little bit and can help to boost your coping efforts. In my opinion, eating enough throughout the day is often more important than eating or avoiding specific foods. But it can certainly be helpful to identify dietary triggers that cause your tinnitus to spike as well. There are many possible dietary factors that can worsen tinnitus, but every case is different. So much so that a food that makes your tinnitus better might make my tinnitus worse, or vice versa. Just to give you an idea though, for some people, excessive sodium can be a big trigger, or excessive sugar or even carbohydrates. For certain sufferers, caffeinated drinks like coffee and tea and soda can cause spikes, while for others, it's alcohol, either while under the influence of the alcohol or afterwards during the hangover once you've processed the alcohol. Eating foods that you are allergic to, even if it's only a minor allergy that you're unaware of, can trigger tinnitus spikes. And so allergy testing can be helpful here, as can foods that you are sensitive to or intolerant of, such as people with a gluten sensitivity or a dairy tolerance, for example. But when I'm working with patients, I never tell people to just avoid everything that could be a problem. My goal is always to help people to increase and raise quality of life with tinnitus as much as possible. And I would never want anyone to deprive themselves unnecessarily of something enjoyable, or to even avoid anything that isn't actually a problem for them specifically. The simplest way to discover your own unique dietary triggers is to keep track of your tinnitus and your diet for a few weeks to look for patterns. And you can do that with the free Rewiring Tinnitus trigger tool that you can find in a link to in the video description below. This is a one-page journaling template where you fill one out each day for a few weeks, and you can fill it out by hand or on the computer. It's a fillable PDF. And then you can go back and compare the bad days and the bad moments to look for patterns, to look what foods or other factors may have been in common around those bad moments or bad days. The free trigger tool can also help you to find other tinnitus triggers as well that have nothing to do with diet. Now, the good news here is that habituation is still entirely achievable whether you do the work to identify your tinnitus triggers or not, dietary or otherwise. And if you do find that a dietary factor is causing your tinnitus to spike right now, it's extremely unlikely that you will need to avoid that food or macronutrient or ingredient forever. In my experience, the vast majority of people are able to reintroduce previously triggering foods to at least some extent after successful habituation, and do not need to avoid anything on a long-term basis. So that's all for today. And if anyone is interested in working with me one-on-one, finding tinnitus triggers is something I can help with. You can apply for tinnitus coaching with the link below, and I'm currently offering free 45-minute Zoom consultation calls to anyone who applies. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great day.